What's the right move for the Fed? The market's pricing in no move this time round and possibly a cut.
Yeah, I think that's a little bit excessive, I have to say. I mean, you've got an extremely strong labour market. You've got wages rising 3.5% to 4% if you look at the Atlanta Fed wage tracker. You've got still above trend growth. I think this afternoon, when we get the numbers, it'll be confirmed that the US is growing above its trend, which is give or take 2%. And inflation is not rising dramatically, but inflation is normal. So I would certainly be looking for the Fed probably to raise once this year. I could even argue for them raising twice. I don't think they will raise twice this year, but I think you can make an argument for that. So if we cut around the political noise and we've got the debt ceiling debate and we've got the budget to be negotiated in September, leave all that to one side. I think that the direction of rates is still for a further 1 or 2 rate hikes. And of course, the Fed's made clear that the quantitative policy is going to continue to be adjusted over the remainder of this year.
Right, but if you look at what the rest of the world is doing, if they're the only ones hiking, even by a small point, then they're at a disadvantage.
Well, only up to a point. I mean, remember that the Fed's not hiking in a vacuum. It's not saying, oh, let's raise rates and see what happens next. They're raising rates for a good reason. And it's not as if the rest of the world isn't tightening policy. The Bank of England's been tightening policy for 4 or 5 years. The balance sheet's been falling as a share of GDP. The ECB, reluctantly, as Mario Draghi seems to require quite a lot of coaxing, but is allowing the balance sheet to fall as a share of GDP. Now, that's actually a tightening of policy in an economic sense. So we've moved to a world where we're no longer just focused on monetary policy. We've also got quantitative policy and indeed regulatory policy to consider. And so the Fed isn't exactly operating in isolation. It is further advanced than other central banks, but then the US economy is further advanced in its cycle than the Eurozone economy, for example.